The Exarathi warship Eternal Venom hung in orbit above the human mining colony on Titan, its obsidian hull absorbing what little sunlight reached this distant moon. Captain Kvex stood motionless on the command deck, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the bioluminescent lights that pulsed in rhythm with the ship's organic systems. His 6 compound eyes methodically tracked the return of his boarding parties, each shuttlecraft bringing more human prisoners aboard. "Bring the next group," Kvex ordered, mandibles clicking with mild irritation. The Exarathi had conquered 17 sentient species through biological superiority alone. Their natural armor could withstand most projectile weapons, their reflexes outpaced even the most advanced targeting systems, and the neurotoxin glands beneath their forearms could deliver death with a mere scratch. These humans, however, had offered unexpected resistance. Kvex had lost 3 warriors during what should have been a routine subjugation, an anomaly that demanded investigation. The airlock cycled open, and 6 human prisoners were marched onto the command deck. 5 showed appropriate fear, their soft, vulnerable bodies trembling before their insectoid captors. But the 6th, a female with short black hair and calculating eyes, showed no fear at all. "You are the research director," Kvex stated, circling her with predatory grace. It wasn't a question. Xerathi intelligence was rarely wrong. "Dr. Elisa Chen," she confirmed, her voice steady despite the restraints binding her wrists. "And you've made a critical error in judgment." The command deck fell silent. No conquered species had ever spoken to a Xerathi captain with such composure. Kvex felt a ripple of amusement pass through his secondary nervous system. "Your species lacks natural weapons," he responded, indicating her blunt fingernails and fragile skin. "No significant strength advantages." He effortlessly bent a metal rod from a nearby console. No enhanced sensory capabilities. His compound eyes shifted to ultraviolet spectrum and back. "Yet you speak of errors in judgment." Chen didn't flinch as the captain's face came within inches of hers, his mandibles fully capable of removing her head with a single motion. "We've studied your previous conquests," she said, glancing at the neural interface wrapped around Kvex's thorax. "The Pargians surrendered immediately. The Gathri fought until extinction. But humans aren't like them." Kvex chittered in amusement, a sound like knives being sharpened. "All species are ultimately the same when faced with evolutionary superiors. Your colony will be harvested, your technology analyzed, your survivors processed. Standard procedure." He turned to order his lieutenant to begin resource extraction when Chen's next words stopped him. "We sent the distress signal 90 minutes ago," she said calmly. "The UNDF *Thermopylae* will be arriving shortly." Kvex's secondary eyelids flickered in what passed for Xerathi laughter. No vessel could respond so quickly across such distances. "Your attempt at psychological warfare is noted, but ineffective." "It's not about distance," Chen replied, a thin smile forming. "It's about technology you haven't encountered yet." The proximity alarm shattered the moment. A high-pitched wail that indicated a massive energy signature had appeared without warning. Kvex spun toward the sensory display as his tactical officer reported with unprecedented urgency. "Captain, unknown vessel has appeared 10 kilometers off our stern. Energy readings exceed anything in our database. They're deploying what appear to be boarding craft." Kvex's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. "Impossible. No species possesses such technology." Dr. Chen's smile widened just slightly. "Like I said, Captain, a critical error in judgment." Admiral Helena Vasquez stood with perfect posture on the bridge of the UNDF Thermopylae, Earth's newest warship utilizing experimental quantum displacement technology. The vessel had materialized precisely where intended, catching the Exarathi completely unprepared. Through the main viewport, the alien ship resembled a massive obsidian insect, its segmented hull gleaming dully against Titan's hazy atmosphere. "Status on that Exarathi vessel?" she demanded, her voice carrying the authority of 20 years commanding Earth's defense forces. Lieutenant Commander Jackson manipulated the holographic display floating between them. Scans indicate approximately 600 colonists held aboard, Admiral. HFY boarding parties still planet-side. Their shields are active but reconfiguring. They didn't expect company. Vasquez studied the tactical projection. Standard doctrine called for disabling the enemy vessel's propulsion systems, but with hostages aboard, options narrowed considerably. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back in a tight bun, her expression revealing nothing of the calculated risk she was about to take. "Prepare infiltration teams," she ordered. "We'll use their own shuttles against them." Jackson blinked in surprise. "Their own shuttles, ma'am." The Exarathi deployed boarding craft to the colony. "Those same shuttles will return, with our people aboard them." A tight smile formed at the corner of her mouth. "Their bioscanners are calibrated for Exarathi life signs. Let's see if they notice the difference." Meanwhile, beneath the colony's primary habitation dome, 3 Exarathi warriors moved through the subterranean research laboratories. Their carapaces glistened with condensation from the humid air, compound eyes shifting through visual spectrums as they searched methodically through human scientific equipment. "This sector clear," the lead warrior reported through the neural network. "Moving to secure the primary data core." What the Exarathi didn't know was what the humans were really mining on Titan. Not minerals or resources, but ancient alien technology discovered buried beneath the ice. Technology that humanity had been reverse engineering for the past decade. Colony Security Chief Marcus Way washed through surveillance feeds, crouched in the maintenance tunnels with the 12 remaining security personnel. His breathing was controlled despite 3 cracked ribs sustained during the initial assault. The tactical display on his wrist unit showed the aliens approaching the most sensitive research area. "They're heading for Section 7, whispered Corporal Rodriguez, her hand tightening around her pulse rifle. "If they access those servers." "They won't," Way interrupted. He had already activated emergency protocols, transferring critical data to quantum-encrypted backup systems. "But we need to slow them down until the Thermopylae can extract our people." He pointed to the industrial mining equipment lining the service tunnel, equipment designed to cut through Titan's ice crust, equipment that might, just might, penetrate Exarathi armor. "Rodriguez, Patel, take the plasma cutters. Chen, the sonic drill. We'll funnel them into the maintenance junction." We checked his own weapon, standard issue and likely useless against the invaders. "Remember, go for the joints between plates. Hit their sensory organs if possible." Back aboard the Eternal Venom Captain Kivex paced the command deck, his agitation evident in the rapid clicking of his mandibles. The sudden appearance of the human vessel defied all tactical doctrine. The Exarathi relied on biological superiority, but this technology suggested capabilities far beyond what their intelligence had indicated. "Boarding craft returning from surface," his tactical officer reported. "Permitting docking sequence." Kivex gestured acknowledgement with a sharp motion of his upper limbs. "Prepare a counterattack. I want their vessel disabled and..." The proximity alert sounded again, cutting off his command. On the tactical display, 7 more human vessels materialized at the edge of Titan's orbit. "Impossible," Kivex hissed. "No species has mastered such technology." In the holding cell, Dr. Chen heard the alarms and allowed herself a small smile. The Exarathi were about to learn what humanity had discovered in the ice of Titan, and why challenging humans had been their most devastating miscalculation. The interrogation chamber aboard the Eternal Venom hummed with organic technology. Fibrous conduits pulsed with bioluminescent fluid, casting an eerie blue light across Dr. Chen's face as she sat restrained in a chair seemingly grown rather than constructed. Across from her, Vexlara, the Exarathi scientific officer, prepared a series of crystalline injectors. "Your physiology is remarkably inefficient," Vexlara observed, her voice a melodic series of clicks and whistles translated through the ship's communication systems. Unlike the warrior caste, her exoskeleton was thinner, almost translucent in places, revealing the complex neural pathways beneath. So many redundant systems, yet so fragile. Chen remained expressionless as the Exarathi approached with the injector. What you call inefficient, we call adaptable. A common justification from lesser species, Vexillera replied, pressing the device against Chen's neck. It discharged with a soft hiss. This compound has extracted truth from 17 species across 4 galactic sectors. Resistance leads to considerable neural damage. What Vexillera couldn't detect were the microscopic implants embedded throughout Chen's nervous system. Military-grade neurochemical regulators designed specifically to counteract interrogation compounds. As the Exarathi serum entered her bloodstream, Chen's implants began methodically neutralizing key components while allowing others to create the appearance of effectiveness. Tell me about your vessel's displacement technology, Vexillera demanded. Chen allowed her eyes to unfocus slightly, mimicking the early stages of the serum's influence. Quantum, entanglement matrix, she slurred, feeding the Exarathi carefully constructed half-truths mixed with deliberate technical errors. Requires specific gravitational conditions. As the interrogation proceeded, Chen was gathering her own intelligence, observing Vexillera's biological responses, noting the neural pathways visible beneath her translucent carapace, mapping the rhythmic pulses of the ship's organic systems. Each question revealed more about Exarathi biology than it extracted about human technology. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the massive vessel, Commander Salah Ibrahim led his tactical insertion team through the ship's circulatory corridors. Unlike the physically imposing Serathi, Ibrahim's team moved like ghosts, their thermoptic camouflage suits bending light around them. Each member carried quantum-linked explosive charges small enough to fit in a palm yet powerful enough to sever the vessel's neural pathways. Junction 7 secured, whispered Lieutenant Park through their subvocal communication system. Charge placed. Ibrahim acknowledged with a hand signal as the team continued forward. According to the schematics developed from previous cynobiological research, the ship's equivalent of a central nervous system should be 3 compartments ahead. They had placed 5 charges already, strategically positioned to disable rather than destroy. The sudden sound of chittering froze the team in place. A Exarathi patrol, 3 warriors and an officer, rounded the organic curve of the corridor ahead. Ibrahim signaled his team to press against the fibrous walls, their camouflage technology their only defensive spotted. The lead warrior paused, compound eyes scanning the corridor. Something had triggered its senses, perhaps a subtle shift in air current or a temperature fluctuation from the human's presence. It raised a clawed appendage, signaling the others to halt. Ibrahim made a split-second decision. Rather than wait for discovery, he triggered the small EMP device on his belt. The localized pulse wouldn't affect their own shielded equipment, but momentarily disrupted the Exarathi neural communications. In the seconds of confusion, his team struck with precision. 3 warriors went down silently, tranquilizer rounds penetrating the joints in their natural armor. The officer, however, managed to partially dodge, the round grazing rather than penetrating. Ibrahim closed the distance before it could sound an alarm, wrestling the much stronger creature to the ground with leveraged force rather than matching its superior strength. Neural disruptor, he hissed. Lieutenant Collins slapped the device against the Exarathi's thorax, and the alien went rigid as targeted electrical impulses overrode its nervous system. Secure it for transport, Ibrahim ordered, examining what appeared to be a neural communication device attached to the officer's carapace. And download whatever you can from this. Collins connected their decryption module to the alien device, eyes widening as data flooded their tactical display. Sir, this contains current fleet deployments. There's an entire invasion force assembled at the edge of the system. This ship was just a scout. Ibrahim's expression hardened as he processed the implications. Complete the mission. Then we get this intelligence back to Admiral Vasquez immediately. He glanced at the incapacitated Serathi officer. And bring our friend here. Dr. Chen will want to have a conversation when she's done with her own performance. The throne chamber of Empress Tecatrex stretched nearly a kilometer beneath the crystalline spires of Cirrus Prime. Bioluminescent fungi carpeted the walls, shifting through spectrums invisible to most species as they responded to the Empress's pheromonal signatures. Tecatrex herself dwarfed the warrior caste Xerathi, her iridescent exoskeleton bearing the genetic markers of 20 generations of selective breeding. The neural crown embedded in her thorax pulsed with activity as tactical data streamed through the hive mind network. The eternal venom has ceased regular communication, reported Supreme Strategist Commanda, his posture displaying appropriate submission before his Empress. Final transmissions indicated engagement with unexpected human resistance at their Titan outpost. The Empress's compound eye shifted, focusing on the holographic display of the Sol system. For over 3 centuries, she had guided the Xerathi expansion across the galaxy. 17 species had fallen before their biological superiority, their worlds absorbed into the ever-growing Xerathi dominion. These humans were meant to be a routine conquest, cataloged, processed, and added to the collective evolutionary knowledge of the hive. "Show me the human capabilities that were not in our intelligence assessments," she commanded, her voice resonating through multiple speech organs. Commanda gestured, and the display shifted to show quantum displacement signatures detected from the human vessels. They appear to have developed technology allowing precise interstellar jumps without conventional drive signatures. Origin of this technology unknown. Tecatrex felt something unfamiliar ripple through her secondary nervous system, not quite concern, but a heightened alertness. In 3 centuries of conquest, few surprises had presented themselves. Prepare the 7th Conquest Fleet, she decided after a moment of communion with the ancestral memories stored in her neural crown. Under Grand Executor Vex Malik, 300 warships should suffice for even an unexpectedly capable species. "As you command, Empress." Commanda transmitted the orders through his neural link. "The fleet stands ready at the wormhole nexus. They can reach the human system within 2 standard cycles." The Empress rose to her full height, towering above her advisors. "I will observe this conquest personally through the hive mind. These humans have proven interesting." Meanwhile, in the underground chamber beneath the United Nations complex in Geneva, Earth's Defense Council had convened an emergency session. Admiral Vasquez stood before the assembled representatives of humanity's unified government, her uniform bearing the marks of recent combat. "The intelligence recovered from that Xerathi vessel confirms our worst fears," she stated, her voice steady despite 20 hours without sleep. "Their scout ship was merely the prelude to a full-scale invasion. Based on the neural data we've extracted, they have deployed approximately 300 warships to the edge of our system." The chamber erupted into voices until Secretary General Okafor raised his hand for silence. "Admiral, what are our defensive capabilities against such a force?" Vasquez nodded to Dr. Elias Kim, who stepped forward. The architect of the Lazarus Protocol looked more like a university professor than one of Earth's most brilliant military strategists. His rumpled appearance belied the precision of his mind. "Conventional warfare against the Xerathi would be suicide," Kim stated bluntly, activating the central holographic display. Complex simulations materialized, showing projections of fleet engagements. "Their biological advantages have created evolutionary blind spots we can exploit, but doing so requires an approach they won't anticipate." The simulation shifted, showing Earth's orbital defense platforms arranged in standard defensive formations. "They will expect us to protect Earth directly. Their evolutionary history as apex predators has conditioned them to expect prey to defend territory in predictable patterns." Kim's eyes gleamed with the intensity that had made him both respected and feared in military circles. "I propose the Lazarus Protocol, sacrificing our outer defenses in a feigned last stand to draw their entire fleet into position, while our actual counterstrike comes from an unexpected vector." Defense Minister Cheng frowned. "You're suggesting we sacrifice our first line of defense." "I'm suggesting we sacrifice what the enemy expects us to value," Kim corrected. "The Xerathi evolved as hive mind predators. They cannot conceive of sacrifice as strategy, only as defeat. This blind spot is our advantage. As the debate intensified, Admiral Vasquez watched the divisions emerge among Earth's leadership. Some advocated immediate surrender to preserve lives. Others demanded full military engagement. The heated arguments revealed humanity's greatest strength, one the Exarathi could never understand with their unified hive mind: the ability to challenge assumptions and adapt strategies through conflict of ideas. The Seventh Conquest Fleet emerged from the artificial wormhole at the edge of the solar system. 300 Exarathi warships arranged in perfect geometric formation. From the command deck of the flagship Chitin Throne Grand Executor Vex Malik observed the distant blue-green sphere of Earth. His carapace bore the ceremonial scarifications of 97 successful planetary conquests, more than any living Exarathi save the Empress herself. Preliminary scans of the human defenses reported his tactical officer, neural tendrils interfacing directly with the ship's sensory array. A three-dimensional tactical display materialized between them, showing Earth's orbital defense platforms and military vessels forming a conventional protective envelope around the planet. Vex Malik studied the pattern, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. The arrangement was precisely what their tactical simulations had predicted, perhaps too precisely. Their response is textbook, he noted, compound eyes narrowing, as if taken directly from our own battle analysis. His second-in-command, Sub-Executor Keleth, gestured acknowledgement. They are a predictable species. Our intelligence indicates they have never faced a true apex predator species before. Vex Malik wasn't entirely convinced. The incident at Titan had demonstrated unexpected capabilities. Still, the hive mind consensus supported direct engagement. The fleet accelerated toward Earth, weapon systems charging. What Vex Malik couldn't see was the hidden battle unfolding across information networks. Deep within a hardened bunker beneath the Antarctic ice shelf, Dr. Kim and his team monitored streams of encrypted data. The captured neural device from the Exarathi officer had provided the key to accessing their communication system. Infiltration at 70%, reported Lieutenant Santos, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. They're processing our defense pattern exactly as predicted. Kim nodded, his expression tense but focused. Through quantum-encrypted channels, his team inserted subtle errors into the Exarathi battle network. Not enough to trigger their security protocols, but sufficient to create millisecond delays in their perfect coordination. Deploy Phase 2, he ordered. Across the solar system, Commander Ibrahim's stealth vessel approached the massive Chitin Throne undetected. His team had been augmented with specialists uniquely suited for this mission. Neurobiologists, quantum physicists, and special forces operatives. Their vessel, coated in light-absorbing metamaterials, navigated through the blind spots in the Exarathi sensor network. Approaching insertion point, Ibrahim reported through the secure channel. No indication they've detected our approach. In the vessel's laboratory section, Dr. Chen made final adjustments to the bioelectric disruptors, devices specifically calibrated to the Exarathi neural patterns they had mapped during the Titan encounter. Each disc-shaped device contained a crystalline matrix programmed to emit frequencies that would interfere with the Exarathi hive mind communication. These won't harm them physically, she explained to the insertion team, but they'll disrupt the perfect coordination that makes them so formidable. Think of it as introducing static into a previously clear signal. Ibrahim nodded, understanding the strategy. We don't need to defeat them. Just make them fight as individuals rather than a collective. As the Exarathi fleet engaged Earth's orbital defenses, the battle proceeded exactly as their simulations had projected. Human vessels fought bravely, but were systematically outmatched by superior Exarathi technology and biology. Vex Malik observed the conflict with growing confidence, though a persistent sense of unease lingered in his secondary nervous system. Their resistance is faltering precisely on schedule, Keleth reported. Orbital defenses at 60% and declining. Vex Malik should have felt the familiar satisfaction of inevitable victory. Instead, he experienced an unfamiliar sensation, one that individual Xerathi rarely felt while connected to the hive mind. Doubt. Increase sensor suites, he ordered suddenly. Full spectrum, maximum sensitivity. An unnecessary expenditure of resources, Kaleth objected. The battle proceeds as. Do it, Vex Malik interrupted, a grave breach of hive mind protocol that momentarily shocked his subordinate. The order came too late. As Ibrahim's team deployed the final bioelectric disruptor near the flagship's neural core, the devices activated simultaneously. Across the Xerathi fleet, the perfect coordination that had made them undefeatable for centuries began to unravel. Each ship, each warrior suddenly experiencing the disorienting sensation of truly individual consciousness for the first time. Admiral Vasquez watched from the bridge of the Thermopylae as confusion spread through the Xerathi fleet. Ships that had moved with perfect coordination now adjusted their positions erratically. Formation integrity breaking down as individual commanders suddenly found themselves making decisions without the collective guidance of the hive mind. Now, she ordered, her voice calm despite the tension evident in the bridge crew. Throughout the debris field created by sacrificed defense platforms, hundreds of stealth platforms simultaneously powered up. These weren't conventional weapons platforms, but specialized quantum field disruptors. Technology reverse-engineered from the ancient artifacts discovered on Titan. Lieutenant Commander Jackson monitored their activation sequence, his expression shifting from tension to carefully controlled hope. All platforms operational. Admiral. Field integrity at 97%. Vasquez nodded. Execute Lazarus Protocol. Phase 3. The platforms didn't target Xerathi ships with destructive force. Instead, they projected an interlacing network of quantum fields that interfered with the organic technology forming the core of Xerathi vessel systems. Throughout the invasion fleet, ships began experiencing cascading failures as their living components temporarily lost cohesion. On the bridge of the Ketan throne, Vex Malik struggled against a sensation no Xerathi warrior had experienced in combat for millennia. Isolation. The constant background hum of the hive mind had been reduced to scattered fragments, forcing him to rely on individual judgment rather than collective wisdom. Status report, he demanded, his voice lacking its usual harmonic resonance. His officers responded with uncharacteristic hesitation, each experiencing the same disorientation. Neural network compromised, reported the communications officer. Ship systems experiencing biological rejection cascade. Vex Malik fought against rising panic, an emotion virtually unknown in the collective consciousness. Redirect power to defensive systems. Priority to neural network restoration. Before his commands could be implemented, the quantum fields intensified. The organic components of the ship, grown rather than built over decades, began to lose coherence. Weapon systems went dormant as the living tissue that powered them entered a state similar to hibernation. Meanwhile, in the ice tunnels beneath Europa's surface colony, Security Chief Wei led his improvised resistance force against the occupying Xerathi. The aliens had seized this moon during their initial push into the solar system, establishing a forward base for the invasion. Using the labyrinthine passages carved through the ice over decades of human habitation, Wei's fighters struck with precision and withdrew before the superior enemies could respond. They're disorganized, Wei observed, watching through a surveillance feed as Xerathi warriors moved through the settlement center without their usual coordination. Whatever the fleet did, it's affecting these units too. Dr. Nilsson, the colony's senior researcher, nodded as she studied readings on her tablet. The bioelectric field disruption is propagating through their neural network. They're experiencing what we might call extreme individualism, something their psychology isn't equipped to handle. Wei saw the opportunity immediately. Prepare the mining charges, target junction points Alpha and Gamma. He turned to the colonists who had joined his resistance. Remember, we don't need to defeat them through strength. Just drive them toward the south quadrant. On Earth, the United Nations Defense Council watched the battle unfold with cautious optimism. The Exarathi fleet, which had seemed unstoppable just hours earlier, now drifted in disarray, their biological technology temporarily neutralized by the quantum field disruptors. "The window is narrow," Dr. Kim reminded them. "Their biological systems will adapt. We estimate 4 hours before they develop resistance to the current disruption frequencies." Secretary General Okafor nodded gravely. "Then we must press our advantage immediately. Admiral Vasquez, you are authorized to proceed with direct engagement." The Thermopylae led Earth's counterattack, accompanied by vessels that had been hidden throughout the solar system. They targeted Exarathi ships with surgical precision, disabling rather than destroying where possible. On Xeros Prime, Empress Tkatreks monitored the battle through quantum entanglement. For the first time in her 3-century reign, she experienced an unfamiliar sensation as she watched her perfect conquest plan disintegrate. Uncertainty. The humans had somehow identified and exploited the Exarathi's greatest strength, their unified consciousness, and turned it into a vulnerability. The Empress made a decision unprecedented in Exarathi history. She activated the neural link to her personal guard fleet, 30 ships crewed by genetically enhanced warriors from her own lineage. They would join the battle directly, an escalation that would normally be beneath the dignity of the throne. What Tkatreks couldn't know was that this response, too, had been anticipated in Dr. Kim's strategy. The true culmination of the Lazarus Protocol awaited her forces. The Thermopylae moved through the debris field of disabled Exarathi vessels, its quantum drives humming at minimal power. On the bridge, Admiral Vasquez studied the tactical display as reports flowed in from across the solar system. The Exarathi fleet remained in disarray, their biological technology still struggling to adapt to the quantum field disruption. Empress Tkatreks' personal guard fleet has entered the system, reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson. 30 vessels, all capital class. Their neural signatures suggest enhanced biological systems, likely more resistant to our current disruption frequencies. Vasquez nodded, having anticipated this development. Their arrival is right on schedule. Dr. Kim's assessment of Exarathi psychology was accurate. The Empress couldn't tolerate watching her forces falter. She turned to Communications Officer Chen. "Open a direct channel to the Exarathi flagship. It's time for the final phase of the Lazarus Protocol." Grand Executor Vex Malik had transferred his command to one of the newly arrived Imperial Guard vessels, the Sovereign Claw. Its enhanced biological systems provided partial resistance to the human disruption technology, allowing limited hive mind functionality. Still, the perfect coordination that had defined Exarathi warfare for millennia remained compromised. Incoming transmission from the human vessel, reported his communications officer, surprise evident in her harmonics. "They are requesting direct communication." Vex Malik's mandibles clicked in agitation. The prey wishes to negotiate surrender. The concept seemed absurd. No species had ever negotiated terms with the Exarathi. Conquest was absolute. Unknown. The transmission is directed specifically to Empress Tkatreks. This violation of hierarchy shocked Vex Malik to his core. For a lesser species to presume direct communication with the Empress was unprecedented. Yet, given the unexpected developments of this conflict, he found himself hesitating to dismiss the request outright. "Forward the transmission request to the Imperial Hive Mind," he ordered after a moment of consideration. On Xeros Prime, Empress Tkatreks received the communication request with the equivalent of raised eyebrows. The audacity of these humans continued to surprise her. After brief communion with her advisors through the neural crown, she made a decision that would have been unthinkable days earlier. "I will speak with them," she declared. The holographic projection materialized in the command chamber of both the Thermopylae and the Imperial Palace on Xeros Prime. Admiral Vasquez stood alongside Dr. Kim, their expressions revealing nothing of the tension they felt at this pivotal moment. "Empress Tkatreks," Vasquez began, her voice steady and formal. "I am Admiral Helena Vasquez of Earth's United Defense Forces." The Empress's image towered over them, her iridescent exoskeleton and neural crown projecting an aura of ancient power. "You address the sovereign of the Exorethi Dominion," she responded, her translated voice carrying harmonics of warning and curiosity in equal measure. "Your resistance has been noteworthy. If you wish to negotiate terms of surrender, I may consider granting your species protectorate status rather than full subjugation." Vasquez allowed herself a small smile. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding, Empress. We're not contacting you to surrender." She nodded to Dr. Kim, who activated a secondary display. It showed a series of coordinates throughout Xerathi space, including several within the Xeros system itself. At each location, telemetry data indicated the presence of cloaked human platforms. "What you're seeing," Kim explained, "are quantum displacement platforms we deployed throughout your territory 3 months ago, when we first detected Xerathi scout vessels at the edge of our system. Each carries a payload capable of disrupting the neural network of an entire planet." The Empress's compound eyes narrowed, mandibles clicking rapidly in what humans had learned to recognize as agitation. "Impossible. Such deployment would require technology far beyond." "The same technology that allowed us to appear without warning at Titan," Vasquez interrupted. "The same technology that enabled us to neutralize your invasion fleet without destroying it. We could have targeted your throne world directly, Empress. We chose not to." The implication hung in the silence that followed. For the first time, in the collective memory of the Xerathi species, they faced an adversary capable of striking at the heart of their dominion. An adversary who had chosen restraint. "You speak of peace, then?" Tekatrix asked finally, her harmonics shifting subtly. "We propose a non-aggression pact," Vasquez confirmed. "The withdrawal of all Xerathi forces from our system, and the establishment of diplomatic relations between our civilizations. We believe there is more to gain through cooperation than conquest." As the Empress considered this unprecedented proposal, a silent message reached her through a quantum-encrypted channel, one that bypassed her advisors completely. It contained detailed genetic analysis of the Xerathi species, identifying vulnerabilities, even they hadn't fully understood in their own biology. Alongside it was a simple message from Dr. Chen. "What we can discover, we can also help improve." The implicit offer, and threat, was clear. These humans possessed the capability to target the Xerathi at their most fundamental level. Yet they offered knowledge rather than annihilation. Tekatrix had not become Empress through blind aggression. She recognized when adaptation offered better survival odds than confrontation. "I will consider your proposal," she said finally. "A temporary cessation of hostilities will be ordered while terms are discussed." As the transmission ended, Admiral Vasquez allowed herself a momentary display of relief. "Prepare a diplomatic vessel," she ordered. "The real work begins now." 6 months after the treaty negotiations began, the crystalline spires of Xeros Prime gleamed in the light of twin suns. For the first time in the recorded history of the Xerathi Dominion, representatives of another species walked freely through the sacred gardens of the Imperial Palace. Admiral Vasquez led the human delegation, accompanied by Dr. Chen, Commander Ibrahim, and Security Chief Wei, heroes of what Earth media now called the Six-Day War. Though the conflict had nearly escalated to species extinction, the architecture is remarkable, Chen observed, studying the organic structures that seemed to grow rather than being constructed. The integration of biological and technological elements suggests possibilities we hadn't considered. Wei maintained a security officer's vigilance despite the ceremonial nature of their visit. Still hard to believe we're walking on their homeworld as guests rather than captives. The delegation was escorted by Caleth, now bearing the title of diplomatic envoy, a position created specifically for interaction with humans. "The Empress awaits your presence in the Grand Communion Chamber," he announced, mandibles moving in what they had learned was a gesture of respect. "This honor has never been extended to non-Xerathi in our history." The chamber itself was breathtaking, a vast dome supported by living pillars that pulsed with bioluminescence. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered to witness this unprecedented event, their expressions ranging from curiosity to thinly veiled concern. The message being broadcast was unmistakable. The deadliest species in known space now considered humans worthy allies rather than prey. Empress Tecatrex entered accompanied by her Imperial Guard, her neural crown pulsing with activity. The assembled dignitaries bowed in deference, including, after a moment of cultural translation, the human delegation. Representatives of Earth, the Empress began, her translated voice carrying throughout the chamber. Your presence here marks a turning point in the evolution of our species, and perhaps of galactic civilization itself. The ceremony proceeded with an exchange of technological and cultural knowledge, carefully curated by both sides, maintaining certain strategic advantages while demonstrating good faith. Admiral Vasquez presented a quantum communication device that would allow instantaneous contact between Earth and Xeros Prime, a gesture of both trust and subtle reminder of human capabilities. As the formal proceedings concluded, Empress Tecatrex invited Admiral Vasquez to a private audience, an honor that caused murmurs among the Exarathi court. In a chamber shielded from both electronic and psychic surveillance, the two leaders faced each other without intermediaries. Your species continues to surprise me, Admiral, Tecatrex admitted, setting aside formal speech patterns. In all my centuries guiding the Dominion, I never anticipated offering peace to a species we had marked for conquest. Vasquez nodded, recognizing the significance of the Empress's candor. Evolution takes unexpected paths, Empress. Our histories shaped us differently, but perhaps toward complementary strengths. Tecatrex's compound eyes studied the human with analytical intensity. For millennia, we evolved superior physical forms, she explained, gesturing to her armored exoskeleton and natural weapons. Each generation refined through selective breeding and genetic enhancement. We became the perfect predators. While we perfected adaptability itself, Vasquez finished the thought. Human history is a chronicle of overcoming our physical limitations through innovation and cooperation. Precisely. The Empress activated a holographic display showing Xerathi brain structure beside human. My scientists have been implementing organizational changes based on your societal models, introducing controlled disagreement to improve decision-making, encouraging individual initiative alongside hive mind efficiency. The results have been promising. Before Vasquez could respond, an aide entered with urgent news, delivered directly to the Empress through Neuralink. Tecatrex's posture shifted immediately. Long-range sensors have detected an anomaly at the edge of the Cygnus arm, she reported, sharing the data with Vasquez. A machine intelligence unlike anything in our records. 3 systems have gone silent in the past month. The display showed something that sent a chill through Vasquez. Mechanical constructs consuming entire planets, converting matter into more of themselves. A synthetic plague spreading across the stars. Against such an enemy, even the Exarathi would have fallen, Tecatrex admitted. Our biological weapons useless against machines. Our hive mind vulnerable to technological subversion. Vasquez studied the data, mind already analyzing potential strategies. While a purely technological species might lack the creativity to counter their adaptations, their eyes met across the divide of biology and evolution, predator and prey finding common ground in the face of a greater threat. Perhaps this is why we found each other when we did, the Empress suggested, not by chance, but by necessity. As the human delegation departed Xeros Prime, news of the alliance spread across the galaxy. Species that had feared the Exarathi for generations now watched in stunned silence as the most fearsome predators in known space stood alongside humans as equals. The brutal lesson in power had been learned by both sides. Evolution's greatest achievement isn't perfect killing capability, but perfect adaptability. And in that arena, the combined strengths of humans and Xerathi created something the galaxy had never seen before. A partnership that might just ensure the survival of all biological life against the mechanical storm gathering at the edge of known space.